Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to your weekly collective energy update. I'm Sharna Langlais. I'm a Reiki Master, energy healer, and intuitive guide, and I'm here to bring you grounded, heart-centered guidance for your spiritual awakening journey. Welcome back if you've been watching my videos. Thank you so much to those of you who have subscribed to the channel. It means so much to me. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button as it truly helps to support this work. With over 20 years of experience, I help clients around the world uncover the root of emotional, physical, and spiritual blockages. And each week, I turn into the collective energy to bring insights and energetic guidance to help you navigate your path with greater clarity, alignment, and peace. So if this space resonates for you, please be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and like this video so you never miss new tools, teachings, and guided practices to support your healing journey. So let's take a deep breath, open your heart, and begin. Well, what another bumpy week this week. I have really been seeing that across the collective energies. I've been talking the last several weeks in these energy updates about the energy of chaos, and we are really in that energy of shift and change at this moment in time. These are some big collective times for us. Frequencies are shifting at rapid levels, and that pendulum is swinging from one side to the other. So as a reminder, we're going to be in this energy for quite a while. Those of you who have been paying attention to what's going on with the awakening and ascension processes know that this isn't all that particularly new. We are just experiencing this in different ways depending on where we happen to be at on our journey. So some of us are tuning in for the first time to some of this bumpiness and we're becoming aware of it. Others of us have maybe been in it for years, if not decades, and are aware of the process of how this creates deeper change. One of the energies I saw this week that was slightly different was a heightened energy of anger and frustration. That feeling of frustration was sort of bubbling up for so many of us. And towards the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, this last week, I saw a lot of popping of that sort of energetic frustration, because frustration, like anger, like a lot of these more intense lower energies, they bubble up to the surface and they break and they create sort of an volcanic explosion. So possible that those of you may have been having some volcanic or disruptive or heightened conversations and communications with people in your life. Maybe you were witnessing that other people were having these experiences. And while in the moment, if we tend to be a more kind of peaceful, loving person, a lot of us grew up in the fawn trauma response, which means that we people please. So we sort of become doormats when conflict occurs. This is a really uncomfortable sensation for us. We don't like to feel the energy of frustration or anger. And quite honestly, in a lot of spiritual circles, anger has been ostracized. It's been demonized. It's been vilified, as if this is, something that no spiritual person should ever experience. Anger. And yet anger is a necessary emotion on our spectrum of emotional experiences. If it wasn't necessary, if it didn't serve a function, we wouldn't have it here, right, on earth plane. And I have loads of things to say about anger. But the thing that I want to talk about relational to anger in today and across this last week is the way that anger allows us to see where shift or change might be needed or might be able to happen. In my way of looking at things, anger is your system's alarm bell, right? It is the alarm going off saying, hey, something's happening here that needs your attention, that needs for you to look at it. And it could be a whole wealth of things that might be being pointed at. But a lot of times we get caught up in the anger and we do two things with anger. We either suppress it and we push it down and we try not to experience, we bypass it. Many of you are familiar with this term, spiritual bypassing. Even toxic positivity can fall into this category. We just kind of float over the surface of it. Everything's fine. I'm not angry. It's all okay. I just sort of think myself out of an angry state, which sometimes can work, we wouldn't want to steep in it. But if it's really bubbling up for us to look at it, and we want to make sure that we can see it. So one way that we sometimes work with anger is we suppress it, we push it down. And the other way is that we get really caught up and wrapped up in the anger, and we feel it, we fuel it with opinions and energies and other people who agree with us, and we get really, really, really caught up in the anger, and it can become destructive. But I love to see anger being worked with in the space of some deeper neutrality and some deeper balance, right? Because these are two opposite ends of the pendulum swing. Most of the time, we want to to be somewhere, if we can make it there, somewhere around a balanced center, which means that we're witnessing the anger as it's coming up and like, wow, that's there. Okay. Like, what's that about? I'm curious about it. And we also want to allow it to express itself in as non-destructive of ways as possible. Anger is usually trying to clear something out. And again, I could talk a lot longer on the different ways that this shows up, and I may very well do that in a future episode or a future podcast topic. But what I want to talk about today is really allowing ourselves to experience the fullness of that anger and finding productive ways of getting that anger out. So destruction practices that are intentional can be really helpful with this. I mean, a long held like tool is like hitting your pillow, right? Or finding a punching bag, chopping wood, throwing things into a bonfire if you can do it in a safe and responsible way. Any ways that we can kind of use that energy of destruction in ways that can be a little bit more productive so the anger doesn't spill out all around us. That being said, about 3 times out of 10, so I would say about 30% of the time when that anger is spilling out, sometimes there's just nothing that we can do about it except allow it to emerge. A lot of us experience deep amounts of shame on the backside of an anger or frustration blow up, right? A lot of times we say things that maybe we didn't mean to say, quote unquote, because honestly, those things often are coming up for a reason, right? But we find ourselves acting outside of how we usually would like to act. And so then we move into this space of shame around it. If we can breathe through that shame and kind of be gentle and compassionate and loving with ourselves, apologetic to the people that we may need to, make amends with if we did destroy some things around us. But then as the dust is settling, anger can allow us to really look at, well, what was trying to come through in that experience? You're going to hear me often talk about the term curiosity. If we can be curious about what the anger was creating, and not in a bypassy way that doesn't own the fact that maybe some things got destroyed and maybe we owe somebody an apology, right? We want to take responsibility for how that anger showed up. But if we can do that without a sense of shame, but with a sense of, gosh, I was doing my best in a difficult moment and this is what exploded out, how can we use that as a tool? Anger is almost always, and I would posit to say probably always, pointing at something. So when anger bumbles up, how do we see it or look at it as an alarm system, right? And if we have trusted advisors, trusted friends in our space, in our community, can we go to them with that and try to process and talk through some of these things, but also somatically express it? That's where these destruction practices are so helpful because they allow you to get it out of your body. Anger is trying to create shift or change. And so we want to allow that to happen in all the ways that it may be expressing. The second energy I've been seeing a lot this week, and dovetails in with this piece about anger, has to do with shifts and transformations in our life and the theme of acceptance. So we cannot change anything that we haven't accepted. And I talked a lot about this with clients over the course of this last week with larger groups that I was speaking to. So often when something is presenting in our life and we don't want it to be the way that it is, right? We immediately jump into trying to fix it, right? Get in there. How do I want to change this? How do I want to do that? What needs to happen differently? But a lot of times we're doing it by rejecting the experience that is currently happening. Usually when we go that route, it's really hard to shift or change things at the core because without accepting what's happening for us in a moment, we can't accept the pattern, right? So we get stuck in this cycle of reparation, essentially, right? Oh, I don't like the way this is in my life. Okay, let me change that thing. Let me change that thing. Let me change that thing. All the while resisting or rejecting the reality of what is now, right? And so when we can accept what is happening for us in a moment and go, gosh, really don't like this experience that I keep eating this particular food that I know is not good for me. But rather than, going into this rigidity around shifting and changing and trying to do something in a very rigid way that rarely works, if we can first say, gosh, let me just accept the fact that I am doing this. This is some radical acceptance right here that this is just what is happening. And I want to look at it and go deep in it. And from there, I can create real and true shift and transformation because I'm actually looking at what the underlying factors were or are that created whatever the expression is, usually of a wound, usually of something that we are experienced maybe as a trauma growing up. This could even be karmic, ancestral, past life traumas. Recently, last Sunday, I put a Reiki transmission up for ancestral healing. Tomorrow, I will be putting a Reiki healing transmission up for karmic and ancestral healing. So something to be on the lookout for as well. So anyway, these are all ways that these energies are trying to shift and adjust in us. So acceptance, radical acceptance in whatever way you might be able to do it would be another tip that I would have for you this week. How do we move into radically accepting all the things that we are trying to run away from? I see this a lot when I work with people in dream space. We often run away from things in our nightmares, but if we shift and turn around and we face what we're running away from, in that nightmare space, there's also a lot of really wonderful information that we can garner from that. Additionally, if we can make that change in the dream space, that can also be super powerful for the way that it shifts the conscious expression of who we are and what we are moving through. Frustration falls on a similar pattern of anger. Frustration, again, is trying to tell us that there is something that's happening that we don't like and we don't want, and we are maybe stuck in a pattern of something. So, same thing, that radical acceptance of accepting what is happening in the moment can be really, really, really soothing to that part of ourselves to work on releasing any shame that we might have and move with the energy of grace if it's at all humanly possible. The last theme I was seeing a lot of, and it runs on the same line, is the theme of communication. Stopped up, cranked up communication that feels choppy. Been seeing a lot of people just sort of missing each other. People that normally can really meet and engage in exactly the same place. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, how are we just missing each other left, right, and center? When these communication issues come up, it's a really great opportunity to practice the pause and take a step back, take some space, cultivate some silence and some quiet time in your trusted and valued relationship. And this is best done if we can do it together in space together, right? So sometimes we need to take a step back and say, hey, I need a few days. I'll call you back. I'm not going away. I'm not leaving you. I'm not abandoning you. I just need to take some space to kind of process and work some things out. Sounds like maybe might be beneficial for both people to take space. Let's agree on a time to come back together and talk. Another way of working with this too is just cultivating time spent with another person, not talking. When we're missing each other in the vibration of communication, of verbal communication and expression, often what that's representing is an energetic misalign. And then we try to correct it with words. The best way to correct it is at the source, which is with energy. We don't cultivate the ability to sit quietly with people that we love very frequently at all. It is one of the most beautiful experiences that we can have when you're just sitting quietly next to somebody else and you're not distracted by the television or distracted by your phones. Maybe you're sipping a cup of tea or enjoying a sunset together, but that opportunity to just be and allow your vibrations that may be freaking out and moving in all kinds of different places to find a resonant connection. And resonance is not about sameness. Resonance is not about conformity. Resonance has to do with two vibrations that harmonize with each other. When we think about music, that's a great way of thinking about that. So two notes don't harmonize when they're exactly the same, right? There has to be a certain amount of difference actually to create that energy of harmony. So it's not about necessarily getting on exactly the same page with beliefs or communication or words. It's actually about bypassing all of that for a moment and allowing the chaos of the frequencies to kind of shift around, move around, do whatever they may be doing, and then plug back into each other. Harmonies will eventually find one another in relationships where there is love, where there is connection, where there is kindness. Sometimes we just need to spend some quiet space with somebody that we care about, not talking all over it. I tend to be an over processor, so I relate to this a lot. I want to, when I'm having a conflict with somebody I care about, I want to go up in my head and process it and figure it out and talk about it and how'd that happen and what do we need to do differently. Sometimes we just need a little bit of quiet with that person face to face if you can make it, on a video if that works for you, even on a phone call, where you're simply just holding space in real time with one another, letting those vibrations realign themselves, and then trying to come back to some amount of conversation, some amount of harmony in that space. So that is everything for today. As always, questions, comments, anything pertinent to today's message, I would love to receive those. If there is something particularly resonant about today's energy update for this week, would also love to know how these energies might be moving through you. Otherwise, stay tuned for tomorrow's Reiki healing transmission, as well as future energy updates. Thanks so much for joining me here. Hit that subscribe bell, maybe leave me a like or a comment if that feels resonant to you, and sending you all so much love and brightest blessings.